come together and all succeed.
Thank you, Michelle de la Isla. Our next question also relates to COVID-19, and on this part of it, unemployment has soared over the pandemic. While it's declining and rising and declining again, the national jobless rate is still more than double what it was a year ago. Our question is, what should the federal government be doing to get our economy back on track? And Michelle de la Isla will answer this one first.
You know, yesterday, one of the things that I've been doing as mayor is I've been participating of the Bloomberg Harvard classes. And yesterday we were discussing the fact that the PPP payments, even though they were good, they supported only the bigger businesses. Smaller businesses, by and large, struggled. In order for us to save jobs, it was $300,000 per job saved. When we looked at the stimulus, the same thing. Consumption went up probably 1.9%, but the individuals that were having lower incomes did not see an increase. So I think that one of the most important things that we could do is fortify unemployment and provide re-skilling opportunities for Kansans and Americans so that when this is done, they're able to come back into the workplace with a better skill and able to attend to the demands that our economy is going to need.
All right. And that same question on unemployment to Jake LaTurner.
This is a critical issue. Kansans are hurting right now. The unemployment numbers have ticked up, and we have to do something about it. We have to realize that folks are unemployed to no fault of their own, and there has to be a social safety net. I believe that we need to pass another bill in Congress that is targeted, that says we're going to deal with those that are unemployed. We're going to help out small businesses that need it, but it's time to get that done. And I think what we're seeing at the national level is Nancy Pelosi, who's a big backer of my opponent tonight, hold up the bill after Republicans have come to the table time and time again trying to get a proposal passed. I think that it's time to get this done so that Kansans can feel the relief. When it comes to COVID-19, we have to deal with the economic crisis. We need to bring our supply chain back from China, and we have to start dealing with this and dealing with it very swiftly.
Thank you for your answers. Well, the coronavirus certainly has highlighted the importance of health care in Kansas and in our country. And our next question is, how would you ensure access to affordable health care? And to what extent is the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, which we've heard a lot about over the Supreme Court nomination hearings this week, how is the ACA part of the plan? Jake LaTurner, you get to answer this one first.
Health care is a critical issue, and I hear about it throughout the district. What Kansans are concerned with is the rising cost of health care. They want the ability to choose their own doctor. They're tired of surprise billing for getting a service and then having a bill show up in the mail weeks later that they had no idea of the cost at the time. And they want to make sure that pre-existing conditions are covered. My commitment to the people of Kansas is that I will not support any legislation that does not cover pre-existing conditions. This is a critical issue, and there's another difference of opinion between myself and Mayor de la Isla. Mayor de la Isla has stated publicly that she supports a public option, which would be a massive government intrusion into the healthcare world. It will raise your premiums, and it will close rural hospitals. Rural hospitals are critical in Kansas, and we need to make sure that they have the support that they need to stay open.
And the same question now to Michelle de la Isla.
You know, when my opponent was in the Senate, he and Governor Brownback at the time decided that they were not going to support Medicaid expansion. The repercussions of this has hurt our state significantly, so much so that we've had 4 hospitals closed. Until this day, we have 150,000 Kansans without health insurance. Currently, the only plan that supports protecting pre-existing conditions is the Affordable Care Act. And when I get to Congress, I will ensure that the Affordable Care Act is not only safeguarded, but that we are able to have the Medicaid dollars for expansion that are coming to the states. The hospitals are so desperate for these funds that they are covering the 10% that's additional. And I will ensure that we're able to have health care for more Kansans.
Thank you both. Now, in the midst of COVID, we have been engaged in a national dialogue over social justice. What areas of law or policy do you feel must be addressed to ensure racial equality in America? And how do you feel about the role Black Lives Matter has played in drawing attention to the issue? Ms. De La Isla, we start the answers with you.
So the first thing that I will say is I have never supported defunding the police. Our police department has had significant increases in their budget so that we are able to continue providing great community policing. But if we're going to talk about what Black Lives Matter has done, I think that what they have done is raised up the conversation with regards to what's happening across the country where black individuals are being killed by bad officers. And we do have to talk about that. However, if we are going to talk about social justice and racial equity, it starts early, before there's crime. It starts in good schools. It starts in ensuring that our kids have opportunity. It starts with making sure that we are able to ensure that every single neighborhood in our community feels like they are safe and that they have access to the God-given abilities being nurtured so that we have less crime in our communities and so that everybody has a same opportunity to succeed in our country.
Thank you. Mr. LaTurner.
The murder of George Floyd was a tragedy, and I support and defend peaceful protests throughout this country. But what we cannot have is violence in the streets that leads to the destruction of property and in some cases has even led to murder. And it is important that we as leaders in the community, myself as treasurer and Mayor de la Isla, stand up and say that we do not need this and that we need to back our law enforcement. When we find a bad apple or two, they need to be dealt with and dealt with swiftly. But we need to recognize that law enforcement men and women are putting themselves in harm's way and they deserve our support. And Mayor de la Isla has stated publicly, I will tell you, quote, defunding the police is a very bad marketing term because what it means is what the city of Topeka has already been doing in practice for the last 2 years. You can watch the full unedited clip at michelledefundsthepolice.com. The mayor owes us an explanation of if she doesn't mean that, why doesn't she come? Why did she say it in the first place? And if she doesn't mean that, why did she accept support from these national politicians that do support defunding the police?
Oh, let's talk a bit about firearms right now as we move to our next question. What changes would you support in our nation's gun laws? Mr. LaTurner first.
I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment and always have been. I haven't just voted the right way, but I've actually carried legislation to strengthen your right to exercise the Second Amendment. This is another area of disagreement between myself and Mayor de la Isla. I understand, like you do, that our constitutional rights are guaranteed for every American citizen, no matter what city or state that you live in, liberal or conservative. You are guaranteed these rights. What Mayor de la Isla has stood up and spoken out for is the ability for cities to pass massive gun control legislation. I don't think that you want the ability for the mayor of Topeka or mayors across the country to be able to supersede the Constitution. That would be a big, big mistake.
Ms. de la Isla, your answer.
You know, safety is our utmost priority. And for me, the firearm situation is extremely simple. The same way that I have to go get a driver's license test in order for me to get behind my vehicle, I just want to make sure that anybody that has access to a firearm has to make sure that they are safe, that they're responsible with that firearm. Talking about our police officers, the city of Topeka police officers picked up 111 firearms that were left in vehicles unattended. These are the things that contribute to more of the danger that we have in our community when guns fall in the hands of the wrong place. And since I have a little bit of time, I will say, the Kansas Reflector and the Iola Register have shown that the statements that the opponent are false. I never supported defunding the police, and it's sad that we're here. However, gun safety is important just as well as people having access to the Second Amendment.
Thank you both for your answers and responses on that. So that concludes our first round of questioning in our 13 News debate. And when we come back, we'll have the candidates ask a question of each other and what you wanted to ask. You're watching our District 2 congressional debate live from 13 News, and we'll be right back in a moment.
The major party candidates in the Kansas 2nd Congressional District are in our studio tonight. We're interested in what they want to know from each other. So first, Jake LaTurner will ask a question of Michelle de la Isla.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, one of the most regressive things that you can do is pass along an electric rate increase to citizens. And the reason it's so regressive is that if you're a millionaire, you have to pay it. If you are on welfare, you have to pay it. In Topeka, you supported raising rates on the citizens of this city. And during the debate, you acknowledged that this would raise rates on all Topekans and would do it every single month. Why did you support that?
I don't understand the premise of the question because the city of Topeka is not responsible for the electricity rates.
You passed along an excise tax to Westar, and you acknowledged that it would be passed along to the citizens of Topeka at the time. It is totally regressive, and you acknowledged it at the time. You can find the record online.
Well, if you're talking about the pilots that we actually charge, the city of Topeka did that. And that was to the electricity because we needed to make sure that we were able to reconcile our budget. We have to pass a sound budget. To that, I would say that we are not the only ones doing that, sir, because I think that if you recall, you helped pass the highest sales tax in the state of Kansas on food.
All right. Very interesting when we do this. And now, Michelle de la Isla, you get to ask a question of Jake LaTurner.
Absolutely. Mr. LaTurner, right now, the most important thing in our state is healthcare. And while you were the senator for your district, under the leadership of Sam Brownback, you passed a gutting of Medicaid, and you did not pass Medicaid expansion, leaving 150,000 Kansans uninsured and underinsured. We had 4 hospitals close in our district. On top of that, you supported what they called a sales tax experiment that left our state hurting. If you become elected to Congress, how can Kansans trust you?
I never supported gutting Medicaid. That is absolutely false. I did not support Medicaid expansion at the time because the federal government said that they were going to come in with 90% of the money and put the state on the hook for 10% of the money. 10% of the money that we did not have at the time, nor did the federal government have the money to send that in as well. What I care about deeply are what everyday Kansans are going through when it comes to their health care. And what I hear from them is they are terrified of rising premiums. They are scared to death that they're not going to be able to choose their own doctor, and they want to make sure that pre-existing conditions are covered. Those are the principles that I will take with me to Washington, D.C. to make sure that we pass a health care plan that makes sense. What the mayor of Topeka has supported is a single payer option where the government has massive control over our healthcare industry. And I'll just say about the previous question. The mayor did acknowledge that my question was accurate about raising electric rates on Topekans, and her excuse was to balance the budget. Balancing the budget on the backs of the poor is no way to run this government.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right. Our next 2 questions actually come from some of our 13 News viewers through Facebook, and both Deborah and Kylie would like to know, how would you each reach across the aisle to do what's best for the state of Kansas? So reaching across the aisle, and Treasurer LaTurner, you get to go first on this one.
I have experience with this, and the way you do it is through building relationships. The problem we have in Washington, D.C. is that no one talks to the other side. Everybody wants to act like a child and take their ball and go home. When I was the chairman of the Federal State Affairs Committee in the Senate, my vice chairman on the committee and I were friends, and I was fair in the way I conducted myself. I gave everybody a fair shot at having a hearing on their bill and let their voices be heard. Now, this doesn't mean that you check your principles in the door or that you sign on to plans that don't make sense for your principles or for your constituents' future. But it does mean that you ought to send somebody to Washington, D.C. to represent you that is sure enough of their principles and their convictions that they can go have conversations with the other side and build relationships to get something done. Because at the end of the day, I think that's what Kansans are really hungry for. They're tired of the dysfunction in Washington, D.C.
And Mayor Michelle de la Isla, you're making this leap from city to federal office. And with this situation, how would you reach across the aisle to get things done for Northeast Kansas?
You know, the same way that we've done it here in the city of Topeka, by working across the aisle. There is a majority of Republicans here in Shawnee County, and I love working with all of them. The entrepreneurial spirit of working without worrying about what the parties are is what I'm going to bring to Congress. And I think that we see that by the progress that we've seen in our community, by having so much economic development and so many positive things happening in our community. Those things happen because we were not concerned about the party. I have never said that I am the Democrat for Kansas. I am the American running to unify our state, running to ensure that the values of kindness are so important and of truthfulness, which are the things that define us. You see it in the way that I have advertised myself. You see it in the way that I speak to my opponent here with nothing but respect. That's the way that we're going to be able to just cut across the politics and make sure that we remember that we're serving people and not parties.
Thank you both. Our second viewer question, a bit of a continuation from a discussion earlier. This comes from Robin. What will you do to support law enforcement? Michelle de la Isla, you begin, please.
Absolutely. You know, I have always been a supporter of law enforcement. Nobody will be as close as having to see the losses of people that you respect in your community that were heroes. But just because we are supportive of law enforcement, it means that we want to make our communities feel safer. When one of our police officers goes into a neighborhood that is predominantly black and there is tension because there is not trust with one another, we must do better. And what I am trying to do is to ensure that we have better community policing so that our police officers are able to have good relationships with everybody in our community. And when they are in a neighborhood, they know that every single person has their back. And I will always, always support them the same way that I have done in the past.
Thank you. Mr. LaTurner.
I've provided you with Mayor de la Isla's quotes about defunding the police. She's made them on multiple occasions. I provided a website that you can go look at those clips unedited and see what her words are. This is a serious issue, and if you want to understand how supported the Topeka police officers feel by the mayor, you should talk to the men and women on the front lines. They do not feel the support of the mayor, and I think it is critical. We are embarking on really dangerous territory right now, where when I speak to law enforcement leaders throughout the state, they tell me that they are very, very concerned about maintaining quality people in law enforcement and recruiting younger folks. I think that governing is about prioritization. It's about setting priorities and then going and achieving it. And so I'm very concerned that the mayor made these comments. I'm concerned with what I mentioned earlier about the raising of electric rates, balancing the budget on the backs of the poor in this community. And all the while this is happening, she's making these comments and she's balancing the budget on the poor. She's jet setting around the country, trips to Hawaii, LA, and DC, all paid for by you, the taxpayer. And we deserve better than that.
That is time, because we want to get one more question in. There will be 30-second answers for this question. Ralph?
All right. Well, this is a U.S. Senate role, but confirmation hearings have wrapped up for now for Judge Amy Coney Barrett, and whether that should have moved forward. And we're going to get some thoughts from you about whether it should be so close to the election.
And the question is, would you support any changes to the U.S. Supreme Court, such as increasing the number of justices or imposing service limits for justices? And this is Mr. LaTurner first.
This is an important issue and one that we should all be very concerned with. We've heard overtures of packing the courts, and the presidential nominee on the Democrat side will not come out and say with a clear voice whether he supports that or not. I hope Mayor de la Isla, as the nominee for her party, will make a clear statement on this tonight. If you have watched those hearings, you can tell that Amy Coney Barrett is extremely well qualified, and I look forward to the Senate confirming her.
Thank you. Ms. de la Isla.
You know, it's a Senate issue, and the Congress has absolutely nothing to do with this. I just want to ensure that the same standards that are applied from one president to the other are upheld. But in the end, Mr. LaTurner and I will have absolutely nothing to do with that decision. We will continue working with and for our citizens no matter what happens. Our system has shown that no matter what happens, we're always able to overcome.
Thank you so much for being with us. We've covered a lot of ground in this half-hour debate here with our questions, and time now for your final thoughts and the closing statements of 1 minute. And Jake LaTurner, you have the first word in the opening statement. So Michelle de la Isla, you get the last word starting for our opening statements.
Well, which means Mr. LaTurner begins the closing statements with you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. As I said at the beginning of this, I have respect for my opponent, but we have major disagreements about the direction of this country, and I hope you've seen some of that tonight. I believe in a federal government that fixes COVID-19 by investing in vaccines, brings our supply chain home from China, makes sure that we get this economy up and running. I think you need to keep more of your hard-earned money, and I think we need government regulations that are common sense and not too onerous on businesses who are trying to make things work. The mayor represents a viewpoint that is very different. She is supported by the likes of Pelosi and Adam Schiff, Elizabeth Warren, who have sent money in to support her because they want a liberal vote from Kansas. They represent a viewpoint that wants to take more of your hard-earned money and wants to make government bigger and try to put down mandates from the government to solve all of your problems. I know that you know that we can do better than that. Kansans deserve better than that. People across this district, as I talk to them every day, have major concerns. They want serious people to go to Washington, D.C. and solve them. My commitment to the people watching this tonight and my commitment to the people of this district, regardless of party, is that I will get up every single day and work hard on your behalf. We may not always agree on every single topic, but you will know where I stand, and I will work hard for you regardless if you support me or not. Thank you very much, and I hope you all get out and vote on November 3rd.
And some time as we conclude this, the closing statement from Mayor Michelle de la Isla.
Kansas, you have a decision to make. My opponent and I have different views. However, here's what I'm focusing on. My background is a background in the nonprofit sector. I've served you everywhere from helping you get your finances back in order so that you could become a homeowner and achieve financial security, everything to helping families through Habitat for Humanity to ensure that they are able to achieve the goal of homeownership. That is my background. And I will continue doing that the same way that I have done for the past 8 years in this community. No scandals, no issues, serving you and listening to you, going to the neighborhoods that typically were not heard. That's what I will continue doing. What I would love for you to hear is that throughout this whole debate, I have not attacked my opponent. And we've had 2 newspapers already, the Kansas Reflector and the Iola Register, saying that Mr. LaTurner's comments are false. My only concern is your health care. Talking about things that have nothing to do with what is happening in our state and in our country is not important. I will advocate for your health care. I will ensure that you have somebody backing you from DC so that we have at the state level Medicaid expansion. I want to make sure that we get through this virus so that our economy is able to thrive again. The same way that we've done it in Topeka, we will continue doing it across the state. And finally, thank you, Mr. LaTurner, for running for Congress. This has been a great experience.
Thank you.
Well, thank you to both of you for the discussion.
Absolutely.
That wraps up our time with the candidates. Now it is in your hands.
Advance voting is underway already in many parts of Kansas, and the deadline to apply for an advance ballot by mail is the 27th of October. And advance voting in Shawnee County begins on Monday morning. If you return your ballot through the mail, it has to be postmarked on or before Election Day, November 3rd. On the 3rd, polls are open in Kansas from 7 in the morning till 7 p.m. And then that night, make sure you're right here with us with 13 News and on WIBW.com, the elections and the latest results and reaction from the candidates.
We have enjoyed helping you get to know the candidates. Last week, you heard from 1st District candidates Tracy Mann and Callie Barnett. Next week, I will be joining our sister station, KWCH in Wichita, to help you get to know your candidates for U.S. Senate, Barbara Bollier and Roger Marshall. Tonight, thank you, Michelle de la Isla and Jake LaTurner, for being with us, and to all of you for your time. Have a good night.
Get the latest news, weather, and sports at WIBW.com.